Chapter 5, Mishnah 2. We learned in the previous Mishnah that while someone is in contact with certain avosatuma, such as a zav, he is considered an avatuma, whereas after he ceases to be in contact with them, his level of tuma decreases to a rishon. This Mishnah continues to discuss that law. It also introduces two other ways in which a zav transmits tuma, to items on top of him and to items beneath him. A zav transmits tuma to a person or object resting on top of him, even if he or it is not directly touching the zav. This is known as Elyono Shel Zav, literally, that which is on top of a Zav. In addition, a Zav transmits tuma to certain items beneath him, namely things designated for sitting or lying on, if he rests his weight on them. This tuma, which has been discussed in previous chapters, is known as Midras. As the Mishnah will explain, there are two differences between Elyono Shel Zav and Midras. A. All objects and people are subject to becoming Tameh as an Elyono Shel Zav, whereas only an item designated for sitting or lying on, such as a bed, couch, or chair, can become tameh with midras. B. The tuma of Elyono Shel Zav is less severe than that of midras. An item that became tameh through midras is an avatuma, just like the zav itself, whereas an object that became tameh through Elyono Shel Zav is only a rishon. We now turn to the words of the Mishnah. Furthermore, the sages stated another general rule. Anything that is carried, i.e. rests on top of a zav, becomes tameh due to the law of Elyono Shel Zav. But anything on which the zav is carried, i.e. any object that carries the zav, is tahor, except for an object that is suitable to be used as a bed or seat, which can become tameh with midras if it carries a zav, i.e. a zav sits or lies on it, and except for a person who can become tameh through a masa if he carries a zav, who can become tameh through masa if he carries a zav. The Mishnah illustrates these laws with various cases. It begins with the case of a tahor person who is on top of a zav. Although an object that becomes tameh as an Elyono Shel Zav is only rishon, the Mishnah teaches that a person on top of a zav is sometimes an avatuma and sometimes a rishon. How so? If the finger of a zav is under a row of bricks, i.e. a zav inserted his finger into the space between the row of bricks and the ground, and a tahor person is on top of the row of bricks, then as long as the person remains on top of the zav, he is an avatuma, since he is considered to be carried by the zav. And he therefore transmits tuma to two and invalidates one. That is, since the person is an avatuma, he can cause two levels of tuma transmission, i.e. food or utensil touched by the person becomes a rishon, and food touched by the rishon becomes a sheni. And one further level of invalidation, i.e. if the sheni touches terumah, the terumah becomes invalid. If he then separates from the zav, i.e. the person comes off the row of bricks, or the zav removes his finger from underneath it, the person's level of tuma decreases to a rishon, since he is no longer connected to the zav, and he therefore transmits tuma only to only one level and validates one additional level, i.e. food that he touches becomes a sheni, and terumah that the sheni touches becomes invalid. The opposite case, where the tahor person is beneath the zav. If the tameh person, i.e. the zav, is on top of the row of bricks, and the tahor person's finger is under it, then as long as the person remains below the zav, he is an avatuma, because he is considered to be carrying the zav. And he therefore transmits tuma to two levels, i.e. he can make a rishon, which can make a sheni, and invalidates one additional level, i.e. the sheni can invalidate terumah. If he separates from the zav, i.e. the zav comes off the row of bricks, or the person removing his finger from underneath the row, the person's level of tuma decreases to a rishon, and he therefore transmits tuma to one level, i.e. he can make food a sheni, and invalidates one additional level, i.e. the sheni can invalidate terumah. The next case involves inanimate objects, i.e. not people that are either above or below the zav. The first case is where the objects are on top of the zav. If food, drinks, a bed, or seat, or ordinary utensils are on top of the row of bricks, and the zav's finger is underneath it, these items become a rishon due to the law of Elyono Shel Zav, and they therefore transmit tuma to one level and invalidate one additional level, as explained above. And even when they separate from the zav, i.e. they're taken off the row of bricks, or the zav removes his finger from underneath the row, they remain a rishon and can therefore continue to transmit tuma to one level and invalidate one additional level. The final cases are where the items are beneath the row of bricks and the zav is above it. However, there is a difference between the law of a bed, mishkav, and a seat, moshav, and the law of the other items, food, drinks, and other types of utensils, as the Mishnah explains. But if a bed or seat or any other item that is designated for sitting or lying on is below the row of bricks and the zav is on top of it, they become an avatuma, since these items are subject to midras, and the zav has affected midras on them by resting his weight on the row of bricks above them. They therefore transmit tuma to two levels and invalidate one additional level. And even if they separate from the zav, they remain an avatuma and can therefore continue to transmit tuma to 2 levels and invalidate 1 additional level. Whereas if food, drinks, or ordinary utensils, which are not subject to midras, are below the row of bricks, and a zav is on top of the row, they are completely tahor. As we learned in the beginning of the Mishnah, anything on which a zav is carried is tahor, except for ibed or seed.